I wasn't expecting much from the summer internship. I applied mostly to shut my advisor up and get something decent on my resume, not because I was dying to spend 3 months doing spreadsheets and coffee runs in a downtown office. The only perk? Interns got paired with full-time employees for projects. Mine was a guy named Tyler. Tyler was everything I wasn't. Tall, confident, a little too charming. He was one of those guys who looked like he actually enjoyed wearing dress shirts. Slim fit, sleeves rolled up, just enough to show off his forearms. Hair, always perfect. A laid-back smirk like he didn't take anything too seriously. We met on my first day. I was nervous, fumbling with my name tag, overthinking how to introduce myself. Tyler just grinned and said, "You don't look like a Kyle." I blinked. "I'm not. I'm Evan." He nodded. "Good. Kyle sounds like he'd be annoying." From that moment on, I didn't know what to do with him. He was nice, but not in a fake way. He remembered my name, asked real questions, made me feel like I wasn't completely invisible. We started eating lunch together, first out of convenience, then not. And every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me in a way that wasn't totally casual. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Tyler was straight. He had a framed photo of a girl on his desk. Blonde, smiley, looked like she loved fall and Pinterest, definitely girlfriend material. So I kept it professional. Or I tried. But Tyler didn't make it easy. He teased me constantly. "Don't work too hard, rookie. You always get this tense when people look at your spreadsheets." He'd lean over my shoulder to check my screen, way too close, like he didn't notice how that affected me. And maybe he didn't. Or maybe he did. One Friday, things got different. We were both working late. The office had mostly emptied out, the city outside turning golden and quiet. Tyler leaned back in his chair, stretched with a loud groan, and said, "Want to grab a drink?" I hesitated, caught off guard. "Come on," he added. "One drink. You've earned it. Your Excel formulas didn't crash once today." We ended up at a dive bar a few blocks away. Dark, wood-paneled, cheap drinks. He ordered a beer. I did too, even though I didn't love beer. It just felt easier. The conversation flowed weirdly well. Work, school, random stories about exes. He mentioned his breakup casually, like it was a sore muscle he was stretching out. "She wanted a lot more than I did," he said. "Marriage, kids, some house in Jersey. I don't know what I want yet." "Fair," I said, trying to keep it light. Then he looked at me, not glanced, looked. "You ever feel like you're just figuring shit out still?" His voice was lower, steadier. I felt my pulse in my throat. "Yeah," I said, swallowing. "All the time." We were quiet after that. His knee bumped mine under the table. He didn't move it. I didn't either. After we closed our tabs, we walked out into the cool night. I expected him to say goodbye, but instead he asked, "You ever been on the roof of the building?" I blinked. "Our building?" He nodded. "Come on, you can see the whole skyline from up there." I followed. The building's rooftop wasn't technically open to interns, but Tyler had a key card that worked everywhere. We slipped through a maintenance door and climbed one last metal staircase. When we stepped out, the city opened up around us. Buildings like silent giants in the dark, windows lit up like stars. The hum of traffic far below made everything feel distant and surreal. "Damn," I muttered, stepping to the edge. "Right?" Tyler said, walking up beside me. "This is where I come when I need to think." He didn't say more, just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes on the skyline. I stole a glance at him, his jawline sharp in the city light, a little stubble catching the glow. He looked calm in a way I hadn't seen before. Like the rooftop stripped away the version of him I saw at work. We stood in silence for a while. Then he said, "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were going to be annoying." I laughed. "Thanks, I guess." "No, I mean..." He turned toward me. You were all stiff and formal. Thought you were one of those try-hard types. And now? Now I think you're hard to read. That caught me off guard. What do you mean? He shrugged. You keep your guard up, like you're always waiting for someone to call you out. I didn't know what to say to that. Because it wasn't wrong. I did keep my guard up. Especially around people like him. Tyler stepped closer. Not much. Just enough to close the gap between us. You don't have to, you know, he added, voice lower now. My heart was pounding. I couldn't tell if this was still just some weird mentor-mentee moment or if something else was happening. The air between us felt charged, like he was waiting for something or maybe testing me. You said you were figuring things out, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What does that mean? He looked at me for a long moment. Then, quietly, it means I'm not sure what I want, but I think I might be starting to. The rooftop suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I could feel his gaze on me, steady and unblinking. I don't want to screw this up, I said. It came out before I could stop it. What is this? He asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't, but I didn't move away either. Then he stepped back, just slightly, ran a hand through his hair like he was trying to shake something off. Okay, he said. Too fast. My bad. No, I said quickly, surprising even myself. You're not wrong, Tyler smiled. It wasn't a cocky smirk this time. It was soft, a little nervous. Hey, he said, let's get out of here. I'll walk you home. We didn't talk much on the way. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was thoughtful, charged. When we reached my building, he paused outside the door. This feels like one of those moments, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Yeah. He didn't lean in, didn't try to kiss me, just smiled again, gave me a small nod, and said, See you Monday, Evan. Then he turned and walked off into the night. I stood there for a long time after, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened and what I wanted to happen next. The weekend dragged. I tried to distract myself, caught up on emails, did laundry, even deep cleaned my kitchen, which should tell you exactly how unhinged my thoughts were getting. Every time I sat still, my mind went back to the rooftop, the way Tyler had looked at me, that half step closer, the way he said he was figuring things out. I kept checking my phone like some teenage cliche, even though I knew there wouldn't be a text. That wasn't how we operated. At least, not before. But something had shifted. I felt it in my chest, like a low, persistent thrum. By Monday morning, I'd convinced myself I had overread everything. That maybe it was just a moment. That maybe Tyler regretted it, or didn't mean it the way I thought. Or maybe it was just a harmless flirtation, something straight guys sometimes dip into for the thrill of ambiguity. But then I walked into the office, and he looked at me. And I knew. He didn't smile right away, just that same steady, searching look, like he was trying to gauge if I was still there with him, wherever there was. Morning, he said finally, soft and low. Hey, I replied, my voice catching slightly. I cleared my throat. You make it back okay Friday night? He nodded. Didn't sleep much, though. Same. He blinked, like he hadn't expected me to admit that. Then the corner of his mouth lifted. Want to grab coffee? It wasn't unusual. We'd done that before. But today it felt different. Quieter, like a peace offering, or a test. We took the elevator down to the street level without speaking. Outside, the city was already buzzing, people rushing by with that usual Monday urgency. But the moment we stepped into the cafe, it was like the noise faded. He let me order first. Then, after we stepped to the side to wait, he leaned in. I thought about texting you, he said, eyes on the espresso machine. I swallowed. Why didn't you? He turned toward me, finally. Didn't want to make it more confusing. I looked at him. It's already confusing. Yeah, he said with a soft laugh. Yeah, it is. We got our drinks and walked back slowly. When we reached the corner near our office, Tyler paused. Listen, he said. I'm not trying to mess with you, Evan. I know. I've never done this before. I mean, not this. He gestured vaguely between us. But I've had thoughts about guys. Nothing I ever followed through on. I didn't say anything. Just waited. He ran a hand down his face, exhaling. But with you, it doesn't feel random. Or like something I'd regret. My chest tightened. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear something like that until he said it. I don't know what to do with that, he added. You don't have to do anything right now, I said. We can figure it out, or not, but I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. That seemed to settle something in him. He nodded slowly. Okay. That day at work, things were normal on the surface. Meetings, emails, small talk about project timelines. But under the surface, something had changed. There was a current between us, humming with awareness. That afternoon, we were both in the copy room, restocking paper trays, our version of the water cooler. He looked over at me, eyes warm and hesitant. You doing anything after work? I shook my head. No plans. He paused. Want to come over? My heart jumped. I kept my voice even. Yeah, sure, and just like that, it was set. But I had no idea what I was walking into. Tyler lived in a converted loft a few subway stops from the office. When I stepped inside that evening, the first thing I noticed was how clean it was. Clean in that masculine, minimal way. Exposed brick, a couple of framed prints, a black leather couch that looked way more expensive than anything I'd ever owned. Make yourself at home, he said, tossing his keys onto the counter. You want a drink? Sure, I said, my voice weirdly quiet. He grabbed 2 beers from the fridge and handed me one. Our fingers brushed. It wasn't accidental. We ended up on opposite ends of the couch, legs stretched out, drinks in hand, some ambient playlist humming from his speakers. He kept glancing at me like he was about to say something, then didn't. Finally, I broke the silence. So, are we going to talk about this? Tyler took a slow sip. Yeah, I just don't want to screw it up by rushing anything. You're not, I said, then added before I could stop myself. Unless you want to. That made him smile. You're bold. Just tired of pretending I don't know what this is. He nodded, set his beer down on the coffee table. Then he shifted a little closer. Just enough. I've been thinking about you, he said, voice quiet now. Not just this weekend. For a while. I just didn't let myself go there. You mean because of the whole straight thing? He gave a soft laugh. Yeah, that. And also because I like control. I like knowing what I want. And this? I asked. This scares the shit out of me, he said honestly. I nodded. Me too. Then came the silence again, but it was warmer this time. More open. Can I ask you something? He said. Yeah. What happens if I kiss you? My chest tightened. Only one way to find out. That was all it took. He moved in, slowly, like he wanted to give me every chance to stop him. But I didn't. I leaned in too, and then it happened. Soft at first, a careful brush of lips. Not rushed, not hungry, just real. It felt like a question and an answer at the same time. When we pulled apart, his eyes searched mine. That okay? Yeah, I whispered. More than okay. We didn't leap into anything more intense that night. We kissed again, deeper, slower. Then we sat there, talking. About his ex, his confusion, about the first time I realized I liked him, about everything that felt like it had been held back for weeks. He offered to let me crash on the couch. I said I was fine going home. But right as I was slipping my shoes back on, he reached for my hand. You can stay if you want. That time, I said yes. We didn't sleep together. We didn't even really touch beyond kissing and falling asleep near each other. But that night in his bed, lying there in the dark with his arm lightly draped across me, I realized something. I wasn't confused anymore. And maybe he wasn't either. The next morning, I woke up before him. Tyler was still asleep, his breathing slow and steady, one arm resting across his pillow like he'd reached for me in the middle of the night. The early light spilling through the blinds painted soft shadows across his bare shoulder. I watched him for a second longer than I should have, then carefully slid out of bed, trying not to wake him. I wasn't sure what the protocol was for whatever this was. Was I supposed to sneak out, make coffee, wait until he woke up, and just casually ask, "Hey, so are we dating now?" I went with coffee. I found his French press and guessed my way through the process. By the time he walked into the kitchen, still shirtless, rubbing sleep from his eyes, I had 2 mugs on the counter and an anxious lump in my throat. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep. "Hey," I replied. "Hope I didn't wake you." He shook his head, took the coffee gratefully. "No, I usually wake up around now anyway." He took a sip, then looked at me over the rim of the mug. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." He leaned against the counter, mug in hand. "About?" I met his eyes. "About whether last night was a one-time thing." There. I said it. He didn't flinch, didn't look away, just exhaled slowly. "I don't want it to be." My chest loosened, just a little. "But I don't know what it is yet," he added. I meant what I said. This is new for me, and I don't want to treat it like it's just some experiment. "Good," I said, "because I'm not interested in being somebody's phase." "You're not," he said firmly. "You're not just some curiosity, Evan." We stood there in quiet agreement for a few moments, coffee mugs warming our hands. That day, I left his place with something that felt like clarity. Not certainty. There was still a lot we hadn't figured out, but clarity in the sense that this wasn't nothing. He wasn't going to pretend it hadn't happened. Neither was I. Back at work, we slipped into our normal rhythm, with a few subtle differences. He'd bump my arm a little longer than necessary when passing by. I'd catch him watching me across the conference table. We still hadn't told anyone, obviously, but something unspoken had shifted. Then came the Friday happy hour. Every month, the company rented out a rooftop bar a few blocks from the office. It was optional, but most people went. Free drinks, free appetizers, and a chance to unwind. Tyler asked if I was going, and when I said yes, he just said, "Cool, I'll see you there." At first, everything felt fine. We stuck to different parts of the group, made casual small talk, played our usual roles. But after his second drink, Tyler came over to me while I was leaning against the railing, watching the sun set behind the skyline. "Can we talk?" I followed him down the back stairwell, where it was quieter, away from the buzz of coworkers and music. He leaned against the wall, ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to act around you right now," he admitted. "You don't have to act any different," I said. "I want to," he replied, then corrected himself. "I am different around you. It's not a game, Evan. I don't know how to be open about this when I'm still figuring it out myself." "I'm not asking you to make a speech," I said gently. "I just want to know you're not going to disappear on me when it gets complicated." His eyes locked onto mine. "I'm not going anywhere." And maybe it was the sunset, or the fact that we were tucked into a quiet stairwell of a bar filled with people who didn't know us like that. But something in me settled. I believed him. He didn't kiss me there, but he didn't have to. The way he looked at me was enough. We went back upstairs separately, rejoining the crowd, blending in like always. But now, when he laughed at someone's joke across the table and his eyes flicked to mine for just a second too long, I smiled back. Because I knew what it meant now. After that night at the rooftop bar, things picked up speed. Quietly, but undeniably. We didn't define it. There were no labels, no talks about what we were. It was just more. More stolen glances. More late nights at his place. More moments that lingered a little too long to be innocent. One night, about a week later, we stayed at the office late again, this time by choice. Tyler had ordered takeout, and we ate in one of the unused conference rooms, our laptops open but forgotten. I feel like I'm living a double life, he said, leaning back in his chair. You kind of are, I said, half teasing. He nodded, serious. I don't want to keep hiding. I'm not ashamed. I just don't know how to say it yet. You don't have to, I said. Not until you're ready. He looked over at me then, with something soft and unreadable in his eyes. Why are you so patient with me? I gave a small shrug. Because I like you, and because I've been where you are. That was the first time I'd said it like that. I like you, and the silence that followed was thick with meaning. He didn't say it back. He didn't have to. His expression said enough. That weekend, he asked if I wanted to stay over again. It wasn't just casual anymore. He cooked this time. Pasta, overcooked slightly, and we ate barefoot on the floor of his living room with glasses of wine that neither of us pretended to know anything about. And when we kissed this time, it was different, slower, more certain. It didn't stop there. That night, we didn't just fall asleep tangled together. We explored, cautiously at first, but with a growing hunger that felt new and raw and real. There were moments where he paused, breath-catching, like he was still navigating something inside himself. Are you okay? I asked once, my hand on his chest. He nodded. Yeah, just trying not to overthink it. You don't have to be perfect, I whispered. He looked at me, something intense flickering behind his eyes. You make it easy not to be. We didn't say anything after that. We didn't need to. We just stayed like that, close, quiet, real. Monday came, and I expected the usual whiplash. Tyler pulling back, creating space. But he didn't. He brought me a coffee that morning without saying anything, just set it on my desk and walked away. Later that afternoon, when we crossed paths in the break room, he bumped my shoulder and gave me a tiny, barely there smile. And yeah, I lived off that smile for the rest of the day. Then, something unexpected happened. At our team's weekly meeting, our manager announced that Tyler had been selected to lead a project overseas, 6 months in Singapore. It was a big deal. Everyone clapped. Tyler gave a humble shrug like it wasn't a huge deal, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. He hadn't told me. After the meeting, I found him at his desk. You're going to Singapore? He looked guilty. Yeah, I wasn't sure how to bring it up yet. When do you leave? In 3 weeks, I nodded slowly. That's soon. Evan, he said quietly, standing up. Can we talk? We ended up in a corner of the building that was usually empty, next to the IT storage room of all places. He ran a hand through his hair like he always did when he was nervous. I wasn't hiding it, he said. I just didn't want it to change things before I knew how I felt. And now? I asked. Now I know, he said, stepping closer. I want to be with you. I felt it in my chest like a punch. But, he added, I don't want to ask you to wait around for me. That's not fair. I stared at him, all my thoughts colliding. So what? We just pretend it didn't happen? No, he said. We make the most of the time we have. That night, we stayed at my place. The air between us was different. Heavier, but also deeper, like we were trying to memorize each other in case it had to end. But I wasn't ready for it to end, and maybe he wasn't either. The next 2 weeks blurred. It was like we existed in a pocket of time separate from everything else. Tyler still went to meetings, still prepped for Singapore, still kept his usual confident stride around the office, but every spare moment he wasn't being watched, he was with me. Late nights at my place, quiet mornings at his. Stolen kisses in empty elevators. Long glances across meeting tables that nobody else seemed to catch. But underneath it all was this ticking clock. Every shared joke, every touch, every moment was tinged with the knowledge that it was temporary. And I hated it. I tried to be chill, to just appreciate what we had. But the truth was, I was falling for him. Hard. And he was leaving. You ever think about what happens next? I asked him one night, lying beside him in his bed, the city humming outside the window. All the time, he said. So? He hesitated, then turned to face me. I don't know. That was always his answer. Honest, but frustrating. I don't want this to end, I admitted. I don't know how to just go back to pretending this didn't matter. He reached for my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. It matters. It really fucking matters. Then why are we treating it like it has an expiration date? He looked away, jaw tight. Because I don't want to ask you to wait. That's selfish. What if I want to? He didn't answer that. Instead, he pulled me closer, kissed me like he was trying to apologize for something he hadn't done yet. And I let him, even though my chest was already starting to splinter. His flight was on a Sunday. That Friday, we had our last workday together. We didn't say anything different, didn't do anything reckless. But when he handed me a coffee that morning, his hand lingered a little longer on mine. After work, he texted me, "Can you come over?" When I got there, he was already waiting by the door, barefoot, in sweatpants, a nervous energy clinging to him. "Hey," he said. I stepped in, shut the door behind me. "Hey." He didn't waste time. Just pulled me in, arms around my waist, face buried in my neck. And for a long time, we just stood like that. We didn't talk much that night. We didn't need to. Everything was in the way he held me, the way his fingers traced my skin like he was trying to remember the shape of me. We made love slowly, quietly, like something sacred. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, the silence thick and full of unsaid things. "I wish I'd met you sooner," he said into the dark. "Why?" "Because then maybe I would have known what I wanted before it was too late." "It's not too late," I said, barely a whisper. He didn't reply. He just held me tighter. Sunday came like a punch to the gut. Tyler's flight was in the afternoon, and I kept waiting for him to text, to say he wanted to see me one more time before he left. But the hours passed in silence. I told myself not to read into it. He was probably packing, overwhelmed. Maybe saying goodbye felt too hard. Still, by noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my jacket and headed to his place. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, but not upset. More like relieved, like I'd done something he couldn't bring himself to ask for. "I didn't know if you'd come," he said, voice soft. "Yeah, well," I said, trying to sound casual. "I didn't want you leaving thinking I didn't care." He stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was half-packed. Boxes by the door, suitcase open on the couch. "I was gonna text," he said, but I didn't know what to say. "How about goodbye?" He flinched a little. That felt too final. I sat on the arm of his couch, trying not to let the weight of the moment crush me. "So what now?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know. I didn't plan for any of this." I didn't think I'd meet someone who'd make me rethink everything. I stood up and walked over to him. "Then stop pretending this doesn't matter." He looked at me. Really looked. "It matters more than I know how to say." "Then say it however you can." He reached for me. His hands landed on my waist, hesitant, like he was still afraid he might screw it up. "I don't know if I'm ready to say I'm yours," he said quietly. "But I don't want to be anyone else's either." My heart broke a little, but also healed at the same time. "Then let's not define it," I said. "Let's just not let it die." He nodded. "Can I still text you? Call? Send stupid memes from Singapore at 3 a.m.? Only if they're really stupid." He smiled, and it was the kind of smile I knew I'd replay in my head for months. I walked with him to the rideshare outside. We didn't kiss. We didn't do anything dramatic. But right before he got in, he turned and said, "This isn't the end. Just a pause. Promise?" "Yeah," he said. "Promise." And then he was gone. I stood there long after the car turned the corner. The city buzzed around me, uncaring, alive, and I stood in the middle of it, heart full of something I didn't quite have a name for. Maybe this was what it felt like to begin again. Not with certainty, but with hope. And sometimes, that's enough.